Welcome back to Season 6 of the Group Practice Accelerator podcast, brought to you by Polaris Healthcare Partners, where we leverage decades of healthcare and business experience to drive growth in successful group practices just like yours. If you're a healthcare entrepreneur and you're interested in building, scaling, or exiting your group practice, you've found not only the industry's leading resource for business education, but a team of trusted advisors dedicated to helping you achieve and exceed your goals. In short, the team at Polaris creates clarity, confidence, and results. I'm your host, Jamie Falash, and the Group Practice Accelerator podcast is on the air. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again this week. So today I've invited a friend of Polaris back to the show, and according to our hosting data, he's a listener favorite. Hi, Cary.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. Thanks for joining me. So Cary is the co-founder and CEO of Dundesk, as you might know from previous episodes, and he lives in the finer details of operations and compliance. And as you know, the former we talk about often on this show. We're all about operations and fine-tuning that, but the latter, not so much. And the reason I bring all of this up is because in my last episode with DeWalker, we asked our listeners and specifically founders to self-reflect and really examine whether or not personal freedom is something you actually have. And I'm getting to a point here, so stick with me. Can you go on vacation and not see revenue nosedive? Does the business rely on your physical presence to remain profitable? Things like, can you step away from the chair and still pay yourself the salary you need? Kind of critical. And we also broke down how to create personal freedom through optimizing your practices. And we approached that at its starting point, meaning really foundational things like what questions do you need to ask yourself, such as, do I want to remain in clinical practice or do I want to move away from the chair to work on the business rather than in it, including where am I today? And where do I need to be in order to experience the freedom and the lifestyle that I dreamed about when I was starting out? And that's something we do with clients during a discovery day. We help them kind of map out that choose your own adventure, if you will, including all the data behind it for your practices. But then we went ahead to provide some high level steps that discussed replacing your salary and utilizing a doctor development program and using advisors like us to help you get to a place of optimization where you have personal freedom. But we didn't cover a few levels below those questions, a level that gets into the details of your ops and compliance. And we need to because that's where the little issues within your business can become the terribly inefficient time and money eating monsters that can derail the personal freedom that you're trying to create. So our friend Cary here, who has direct insight into the inner workings of growing groups, has not only created solutions with Dundesk and other resources, but he knows how to get founders and practices set up in a way that they can count on, a way that allows them to build that personal freedom and really get back to building the life and business that they want. So with that, please help me welcome Cary back to the show. Cary, welcome back.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back. It's been a minute.
Yes, it has. And I
Uh,
know that you're striving for episode of the year. You're well on your way. You seem to be a fan favorite here with Polaris listeners. So we're glad to have you back.
Awesome. Thanks.
So you and I talked about getting into the finer details and in discussing like how we want to approach this show. You brought up a really good point. Some of these dental conferences, we've got Dicoma, we've got ADSO, we've got ADGP, and a number of others. They're approaching operations. I'm going to roll compliance into that for a minute here. They talk about it from, you mentioned, a processes standpoint. And we all talk about optimizing operations, which was the point of this show to create and build on that personal freedom that DeWalker and I talked about. But you mentioned what they don't get into, the
Yeah,
who,
they don't.
the what,
Uh,
and the how.
yeah, it's like okay. I went to the meeting. I heard. I took some notes, and I came back home, and I did nothing with any of the information because I put my feet back in the fire, and
Exactly.
I didn't have a chance to really absorb or do anything. And, it's especially, this isn't me saying that. This is just my interactions with customers and who have over the years become friends. And that I see that they go to the conference, they post on their LinkedIn, they're at the conference, but then the next week they're calling me with some sort of operational problem that is very elementary in the big scheme of things. Like, that singular issue is elementary, but when you combine it with time away from the office, lack of training for people, and like all the other aspects of the business, that one elementary issue on the surface can be deep rooted in a number of other causes. And so when when folks, it's universally agreed upon that having business processes is great. I've taken a ton of Six Sigma training. I've worked in companies that hold everyone accountable to the quality of work and to work processes. And I haven't seen anyone argue that business processes are not the way to go. I haven't seen anyone do that. I also haven't seen anyone argue against the fact that as you grow your business, location wise or people wise or footprint wise or complexity wise, through procedure sets, that things get easier. That's generally accepted that as you increase the complexity of the system, that system can become more unwieldy.
Yes. And go ahead.
But the thing that I see that is the absolute gap in this industry, top to bottom, is the ability to say who does the work, how does it get done, when does it get done, and then say, Doc, this is how that should happen for free without some sort of like consulting paywall or some sort of like, hey, if you agree all these things are true, then this is the next step. And that's where the conference circuit and where the time ownership wise should be spent is like, how do we implement execute this for performance, and then to create these systems that can live without us, so we can leverage this business to live the life we want to live
Yeah.
versus the other way around.
Yeah, I would really, and I love these conferences. We hit them almost every year to varying degrees. Like, for example, last year, or actually early this year, it was end of January, ADGP, we did 3 hours on clinician to CEO. But we can't get into these little details even in 3 hours, like you and I are talking about today, because you have to give people a starting point. So it's tough, I think, sometimes for these conferences to really give you the takeaways that you need. It can be done. It can be done.
Well, here's the thing.
Designed, of course.
Here's the thing. The conferences are what I call faux show. They're for show, right? You're
Okay.
you're the people who are doing the work to be operationally excellent should be at those meetings. And those people are
Mhm.
back at the office getting their hands wet, sterilizing stuff, cleaning stuff, answering the
Yeah.
phone, processing claims. The conferences need to be for those people, not for the owners, because the owners are going to nod their heads and go, yeah, we need all that. But then they're going to come back, and guess who has to implement all that? The owners have to. And
Yeah.
that's where the time and expertise gap gets widened because they don't know how to do those things.
Mhm.
So my argument is at if you universally agree that I'm a multi-location practice owner and I want my life to be what I want it to be from a leveraging this work to live the life I want to live, then you have to answer who's going to do that work, how are they going to do that work, and when are they going to do the work? Like, what are the operational rhythms that need to occur? And
Yes.
then that's why we built Dundesk, because that's the system that allows all of that to live and perpetuate no matter who's in the job and no matter who's in leadership position. And that's why the software was built, because so many times gaps are being built into your process, and that's leading to risk, and folks just can't find a way out. So they go to the altar, let's say, and say, "Hey, what are the secrets? What are the hidden things?" And I'm like, "Bro, there are no more secrets.
Yeah.
Chat GPT and all the AI, there's no secrets, there's no hidden unlocks, there's nothing. There's only execution." So if there's only execution, how do we do that? I think we focus all of our attention on the hourly waged employees that make work happen, and we either lift them up into positions of leadership or trusts where they can automate, they can manage these processes for you, or you hire leaders that then that are responsible, that hold people accountable. So as the owner position goes, you're doing just two things, which is the greatest pinnacle of my life as an owner.
Mhm.
Is if you can ascend to just having two responsibilities as a CEO, you've made it. And those
Yes.
two responsibilities are developing people and managing risk.
Mhm.
Those are the only two jobs a CEO should ever be doing. And if you're not doing that, then you are in the weeds and you don't have people who can pick up those weeds and do the work for you, and you need to reconsider how you've organized yourself to go after that.
Yes, and from a founder's perspective, one of those 2 things that you just mentioned, the developing people part, that's also building the foundation for adding locations. You have to have those people that are developed in order to grow. So all that can fall into those 2 headings. And I want to get into some details on operations and compliance and assignability and accountability like we're talking about here
Yep.
because we know that being the CEO, you're the idea person. And that's critical, but sometimes that doesn't lead to action, like you're saying. And that's not a criticism to anyone. It's just, I think sometimes we get in our own creative space and we come back from conferences feeling so inspired that we have a folder of ideas that never hit the team, or they don't hit the team in an organized way, or there's no processes built behind it like we talk about at these conferences.
Or the team, here's the thing, the team wants to perform,
Yes, I
but
agree.
the leadership who goes to the conference brings in all this information out of context. And
Mhm.
so then the people are like, "Oh, great, here we go." The owner wants to do all these things, but they don't really understand why, how, who, when, like all those things. And so they just end up gravitating back to the what they were doing, which is performing and making money the way they know how. And that's really a gap.
It
I wanna, like, you asked me to define what is compliance.
I did. I do wanna start with that because we're talking about operations and compliance and,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
compliance is an operational responsibility, not just a legal one, but let's define that before we get into anything else.
Yep, sure. So for me, compliance, well, for the industry, right? Compliance is OSHA and HIPAA. That's pretty much everyone calls us. I want to be in compliance. And I say, what does that mean? They're like,
Yeah.
OSHA, HIPAA.
Yeah.
And I said, let's reframe what compliance is. Compliance is the core set of business processes that you want to implement or are implementing that move your business to the direction you want it to go. And if you are not following all of those things that are moving you in the direction you want to go, you are out of compliance, right? So
Yes.
so compliance is this the way we do things, let's just put it that way. And a small subset of that is OSHA,
Mhm.
infection control, radiation, emergency preparedness, facility readiness, HIPAA. And even if you're multi-state, then you multiply all those things by however many states you're in, right? Because you have to. There's some state nuances, but all in all, the compliance seems to be segmented away from clinical,
Yeah.
segmented away from operations, segmented away from revenue. And the issue is that those are all the same thing in my mind.
Yeah, I think compliance for some people, immediately what pops ahead is a big binder that might have some dust on it, but it sits in the office.
Yeah, and the shrink wrap still from when Carrie gave it to you last year. I've seen it. I've seen it.
Never,
Yeah.
never, ever. But we know that there has to be I'm going to use that word culture that I know you hate, but there has to be an understanding and culture of compliance, meaning implemented systems across your locations in order for it to work. So, how do you implement that type of, and I'm air quoting culture for you here, how do we implement a culture of compliance across your locations to even build that element of the foundation? Before we get into the who, what, why, who's
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
accountability part.
Yeah, so thank you for remembering I hate the word culture. Uh,
I know. It's
it-
it's it's a point of contention.
dentistry uses culture like it's this religious-esque motivational thing that
Agree.
makes people kind of perform the way you want them to perform because it's in their nature and you're leveraging their internal natural interests to be a good employee.
Mhm.
And the fact is that's absolutely the wrong direction that you want to motivate people. The way to motivate people to create, if you want to call it organizational effectiveness instead of culture, right?
I like it.
Is that if you let that hourly wage employee step into your business and there's zero friction in terms of what they need to accomplish that day, when they go home, they've lived a frictionless 8-hour existence with your business. And that means that you've taught them everything they need to know. They executed properly without error. They can then put the tools down in the workshop and go home and not carry the tools with them home.
Mhm.
Right. And when
Yeah,
people take these tools home with them, that creates the emotional friction in their personal lives that
agree.
should be separate from that. So organizational effectiveness versus culture, I don't really care about culture. I just want the business to win. I want everyone to go home and not think about work. That creates a following, an emotional connection of people to the leadership
There it is.
to the leadership's will and interests in providing great healthcare for their community, that draws the people back into the office because you've removed all the risk for them emotionally and physically through good compliance programs, through good training, through good leadership and clarity of role and assignments, and you're also rewarding behaviors, like you drawing them back in so they can perform for you, but then you're also rewarding them with letting them leave without having to take work home.
I think
Right.
you y yeah, you hit the nail on the head, and for anybody that's listened to any number of these episodes, boundaries. This falls into the have good work-life boundaries, because when you go home and you shut things off, you come back happy to be prepared to manage these things, and I could go down a rabbit hole, but I won't get on my
I,
soapbox.
I mean, I'll
Uh,
give you an example. I'll give you an example, right? I mean,
yeah.
everyone shows up to work and things are undone, right?
Mhm.
Everyone does. I mean, and that's why we call it done desk because we want people to have everything done so they can go home, right?
Yes.
And I've been to a practice where I was doing training. This was years ago. And I walked in, and the employees are racing into the building, like
Mm.
running, literally running in across the parking lot, grabbing brooms and mops and wiping things down and trying to get clean before we did the training because they were going to see patients after they did the training with me. And I just told myself, okay, well, they left this practice dirty, right?
Oof.
So leaving the practice dirty means but there's a bunch of diagnoses you could do there to kind of say what's the root cause of letting employees leave because of that. But I'm like, how much of that anxiety did they take home with themselves?
Yeah.
And they're bringing that into the day. They're bringing it into their relationships as they get started for the day. They're bringing in that into the quality of work. It's like it's just not a good way to live. It's frustrating. And then owners don't see those problems until patients experience these poor processes and start to complain. Right?
Yeah, it takes a little while for the water to hit the bottom of the waterfall. But truly, if you have all of these little operational pieces taken care of during the day, you shouldn't be leaving the practice in that condition. I mean, that's goes without saying. So,
Well, it's anything that is tied to a process. If it's not completed, it gets left behind. Some of these things are, receivables, claims, instrumentation and sterilization, the
mhm.
medical waste, whatever conversations that haven't happened because the impatient's called in and needed, like things get left behind and that builds up and creates this anxiety of things are undone, right?
Yeah, and I should be clear, when we're talking about things from an operational perspective that aren't being done, we're going beyond some surfaces weren't clean. It's revenue cycle management. It's are all your instruments ready for the next day? Have you set up the operatory in such a way so that when you come in the morning, you're not flying through things to get prepared for your first patient? I mean, for me, I like to go through patient files the day before, just like I plan out my day now on a little nerd calendar. I like to know what I'm doing the next day so that I can plan for that day ahead of time. There's not an unknown when the day
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that, again, creating the boundary between work and outside of work, that's part of it. Planning is part of your job.
Let's talk about how, like what,
Yes.
like the tactics of this all.
Yeah, because you mentioned rather than just processes, the things that are missing, how, who, and what. So
Yes.
let's talk about the how first.
Okay. So how is the essentially the first step in business transformation. If you're standing today, right?
Uh-huh.
We have made 350 standard operating procedure videos that are about 15 to 18 minutes long. It's everything from how do we call the pest control people because we have bugs, down to how do we hand patients off between front and back, how do
Mm.
we do pre-medical worksheets, how do we take medical vitals as we're putting people in chairs. Like, it's everything that we thought we needed to build to help people run a dental practice.
And what a
And
benefit, because when somebody coming into a practice, even if they're at a director level, there are so many moving parts to the how. And I'm going to actually rephrase that to how to.
yeah,
Where do you even begin?
yeah.
So that's why, I love Done Desk, and not to sound like a commercial, but it's important. It's something that you do need for your practices. So, and that's why I feel passionate about that.
And it is prior to us getting on the call, you were like, "What do you see in the world and all that?"
Yeah.
I've personally been in over 2,000 dental practices. My feet have been in 2,000 dental practices, and the how thing is always missing.
Yeah.
We do have an ops manual, but, it's not really been looked at. Or my training program consists of a 90-day probation period because I hope these people have already learned what they need to know to how to do when they come work for me,
Mm.
those sorts of things. And it's like, it's basically baking cakes without recipes. You're just, hoping it works out. And some people get lucky, some people don't. And this how piece is I think the hardest part of solidifying your journey to, like, letting a business leverage this business to do what you want to do, because it's the most time intensive piece. And that's why we invested so much time in building all these resources for our practices, because you're just not going to do it. I know you're not going to do it. You don't have time.
Yeah.
And so we kind of build this as a head start. The other thing to know is you guys already have systems. It's just, are these systems intentional, or are they accidental, or are they learned from some other business that these people used to work at, right? So
Mhm.
you have all that. Now, that's the how, and that's kind of the hardest part. And this is the long tail journey of getting started.
Yeah.
Is starting that process to say, how do we do things here, and then how do we build the documentation, how do we build the training, and then how do we implement?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I brought up in my intro that you see this firsthand in 2,000 practices that you've had your feet in. That's incredible. Your experience is so valuable, and this speaks to why you're a listener favorite, Carrie, is that you've been there, you've seen it. And as tough as it is to hear sometimes, because I think some founders and business owners in general would rather not deal with what's happening in the back end. And you really have to, because as we talk about on this show repeatedly, you've got to have those first couple of locations set up really well, really optimized, so that you can become profitable. And the best operations aren't just efficient, they're repeatable, measurable. We love our data, and they're compliant. So,
Yeah,
this is how dental groups build systems, and they make it easier to then add locations moving forward.
yeah,
Okay, so we've got our how to. Any
yeah.
more how to?
No, let's go to who to.
Okay, I like it. I
Who
like
to.
the assignability and accountability. Those are
Yeah. Yeah. So who? So I had a conversation this morning with Mona. Shout out to Mona. I'm going to send you this episode. Uh, she had to move states, and left one of our Dundesk customers and called me this morning and said, "Hey, I'm with this new 4 location group and I want to use Dundesk because this group doesn't have the things we had at our other location or
Okay.
my other business." And the I said, "Well, tell me about your role." She goes, "I'm their first director of operations, and my job is to solidify so we can grow." Right. So when I say who, and you just said, owners should care about these things, but if you have 4 locations, 3 locations, 10 locations, whatever it is, you're an owner. You're not doing this work because your job is twofold: develop people and manage risk.
Hmm.
And the develop people piece has to be in the who part starts with someone is responsible for this in your business.
Exactly.
They're not, and here's who it is specifically. It's not an elevated RDA or hygienist. It's not an elevated front desk person. It is a business minded individual who understands business process, business implementation, organizational development, training, like this kind of person. I wouldn't even say it's an HR person. I would say you're looking for an ops person who can glue this all together and gather resources that can make these things real. There's a guy, a friend of mine who does this for a living, and he is very good about this part of it. And it's not someone from within the team because people from within the team kind of there's a whole bunch of things over that. I won't go that direction, but I'll just say that you got to get somebody to be responsible for this, pay them to do it, and then hold them accountable so they can build this for you, build a platform, and allow you to replicate that.
Yeah. And every single one of these people will rely on your how to section to get things done and to onboard new people, which is what I want to ask you about next. Because if we're talking about assignability and accountability in the who, what about onboarding? Help me with that.
Yeah, everyone I talk to that listens to me, I ask them, "Do you have a 90-day probation period?"
Mhm.
And everyone says yes. And I say, "Great. You're starting off an employee already in trouble, right?" I mean, it's just a negative kind of experience. Like, I'm already in trouble. I just got
Yeah.
started here. And it's a risk management it exists because it's a risk management technique to allow an employee to demonstrate themselves, and, if they don't demonstrate the behaviors and attitudes that you want them to have, then you have an opportunity to fire them, right? I mean, that's
Okay.
kind of the risk management technique.
Yeah.
So, but I say, look, if they're good enough to hire, like you've decided they're good enough to be in your patients' faces.
Yeah, that's an investment right there.
I mean, if they're good enough to, put your license on the table for their actions, then they are worthy enough for you to develop a 90-day development plan for that person to invest in them over 90 days. And I have this plan. And there's actually 2 tracks. There's a leadership track of everything you should be doing for that employee that's 90 days long. And
Mhm.
there's an employee track for everything they should be experiencing, coming into contact with, meeting, doing, documenting for them as well. And they marry up. So the leader has an active approach of bringing this person through the first 90 days. Now, the good news is because you're gonna have such close contact with these people through the first 90 days, everyone's gonna know when they're not a right fit. Like, it's gonna be obvious.
Yeah.
And again, this person who's doing the onboarding, 90-day onboarding, is not the CEO or the owner of the business. It's gonna be this who person who's the operations person because
Yes.
they're going to be able to tailor their operational routines around the experiences that people are having. They're going to learn basically from what the people are going through as they go through the first 90 days. And
Mhm.
you can hone your process through the 90-day process with the people. So that's onboarding. It's massive, but just absolutely kill your new hire 90-day probation period tomorrow, please, and move into the 90-day development strategy. It'll make you a better employer. You'll learn more about your business, and you'll keep people longer because they'll feel heard and held.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm really glad that you brought up an ops person. This should not be a double duty role. Ops in itself is a wild animal. I know, I'm the director of operations. It's and it's more than just writing SOPs. there's so much more to that, and I don't feel that you can be effective in that role while you're doing something else that requires you to care for patients.
Yeah,
As a clinician, I
you're
can say
task switching too much.
yeah.
There's too much task switching. So you're moving from clinical, you're charting, you're doing HR work, you're doing supply management work, you're you're just moving between too many tasks. And an operations person who's focused on this concept of compliance as an organizational effort,
Mhm.
that's a role by itself. And again, I'm not saying that a dental professional within your team isn't capable of doing the role.
Right.
I would say bring an external person in and let that person develop bench strength for the rest of the team. Because if you have multiple locations, you're going to need junior level operations people watching and doing things that the operations person doesn't have time to get to go and do. So you're segmenting effort, and that's critical. D- dental expertise is needed, but I think the local folks, when you get down to the local level, you need people to be engaged in this, and they need to know what to do and watch it for you while you're moving around.
Exactly, and there are some advantages to bringing someone from the outside and not relying on the native language of your group when it's in that smaller stage because an outside person is going to see your practices through fresh eyes and look at what you're missing. Look at what you're doing well. Look at what can be reproduced and what needs to just be tossed in the trash and start all over again. And it also speaks to an episode that we did recently on that layer of leadership. Because if you are the founder and CEO and you're having to direct the assistants, the office manager, hygiene, all the other doctors, how are you really the CEO? How are you managing that role? You're not working on your business, you're working in it every day. So,
Yeah,
really, you need to have someone in the middle that can report up to you and that your second layer respects to follow these type of procedures and the processes and the how to and the who. So, thank you for bringing that up,
yep.
which brings us to the third thing you mentioned.
Which is
What?
when
Oh, okay.
when
What? When? When? I thought you said what? Okay, when?
no when. So this is a bit of a got you process, right? I
Okay.
mean, you're a CEO. I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
You're an owner of 4 locations, and, you're kinda cheap. Let's say cheap and or frugal, or maybe you're just cash strapped because
Yeah.
you've made some investments, right? Whatever the lack of resources are, so you think, "Oh, man, I'm gonna take this role on myself,"
Okay.
right? And this has happened to a doctor conversation I had just last week. She's like, "I can't afford to have an operations manager in my business, so everything you're telling me is gonna be on me." So then my question to her was, "When? When will you be doing this work?" Right?
Yeah.
And this is the work-life balance thing. It's like how much of your life is worth investing in your business more than what you already do? And so the when question becomes, when are you going to do this work? And the answer is, I don't have time to do it because it hasn't been done already. So
Exactly.
you need to get some capacity of when. Then the second part of when is you need to define when this work gets done in the terms of the sequences and the rhythms of your business, how we distribute attention to different things. What's a priority? What can we leave behind? How do we delegate? Like all of those operating rhythms that happen is really the next step after you come up with how do we do things? Who has to do these things? And then you're like, when do we do these things? And that scheduling of effort is really the execution part of attaining the efficiencies that you want out of your business.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, tell me a little bit about you mentioned something and if it's too soon, it's too soon, but we were talking about the accountability part and the assignability part of that. Can you give a little sneak peek about what's coming? Because I was kind of excited about it.
Oh, with Dundesk. So yeah, so
Yeah.
we have this group. We have this really large group. They're like 80 locations, and they're like, "Hey, Carrie, your tasking software in Dundesk, the feature in Dundesk, doesn't it's not working for us." And we're like, "All right." Rebecca and I are like, "All right. Well, what do you need?"
Yeah.
And they said, "This is what we need." And so we're like, "Awesome. let's build that because if they need it, everybody needs it.
Sure.
And so the operational issue you have is around tasking, right? So people got to do things all over your practice. People come and people go. So how do we hand off tasks? But the other issue is like how do we allow groups of people who can do a certain task uh, gang up on a task? So our new feature, which we think is unique in the world, I haven't found anyone else that handles it this way. Certainly for multi-location practices in any industry is that for example, a dental assistant could do a task. So therefore, any dental assistant could do that task. So, like, let's say spore testing. So,
Mhm.
what Dundesk will have is the ability to throw a group task at a group of people, and whoever gets to do it first does it. And then it removes that task from everybody else's work queue. So
Nice.
you're basically splitting the effort amongst a bunch of people versus Janet, you have to do these tasks. Steve, you have to do these tasks. Because what happens when Janet leaves? Or what happens when Janet's schedule gets overflowed? Or Janet has to go to another location to cover for someone else? Those tasks always get left behind.
Yeah.
So our group tasking feature eliminates that gap, which is awesome. The other thing we're implementing is with a manager who has to do something for multiple locations, like the same task at multiple locations. Maybe it's performance reviews, maybe it's OSHA audits, facility checks, whatever it is. We have a way now for a regional manager to be assigned one task that applies to multiple locations. So
Mm.
that person can then go, okay, I've got to go to all the locations to do this task. And if that regional manager leaves, the next manager up would be able to see, oh, these tasks were left behind. I need to go pick them up and go close that gap for the business.
Because truly, unless you can see who did what task when, it's not done.
Yeah.
It's so let's talk about metrics for a minute here. What do you provide in terms of data? Because I want to see who's doing what when and how that translates across certain things within the platform, like maybe onboarding or like you said, sport testing. What does all that look like?
Yeah, so if this is set Dundesk aside just for a half second, right?
Yeah.
If you've built some sort of way to have all of your how stuff done, like how to's,
Hmm.
right? Ask yourself where does that live that is the most optimal solution for giving that information to the people after you've developed it.
Yeah.
And people have all kinds of answers. The binders, Google Drives, YouTube
Email.
videos, like yeah, whatever. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's where Dundesk thrives. Is that's one source of truth. It's one place where all this can live.
Yeah.
Then, metrics wise, everything in the software is tied to some sort of category. So if something gets left behind, a number pops in that category. So, for example, an employee forgets to do the spore test at location 4 for this week, a number will pop in infection control that says something got left behind. And
Mm.
you click into that, literally in 2 clicks, you can see who's not doing their job. It's
Oh,
pretty awesome.
okay.
So in 2 clicks, you go from something's missing to who's not doing their work. And so now the conversation isn't, is anything done or is everything done? The conversation is, why isn't Mary doing what she's been asked to do?
Okay. Yeah. And that's helpful to know because if Mary's dropping the ball every day, things tend to pile up. There's your risk, right? Your
Well,
job is risk management.
yeah, I mean, we turned Dundesk on and we loaded everything up for a good friend of ours who has 7 locations, and the numbers were out of control. And he was like, he said, this is insane. And I go, why is it insane? He goes, this is just too much. And I said, Doc, this is the work that needs to be done for your
Huh?
business, whether or not Dundesk is turned on or not. And he's like, wow, it's a whole different ballgame when you quantify the amount of effort it takes to have a patient leave the practice happy and well treated. And it's like if you all that numbers wise freaks people out, but I'm like, bro, this is what's happening in your business right now, but it's
Yes.
not under any sort of design. It's by accident. And that's why people have all these problems with bad Yelp reviews and employee problems and all that. It's like you're just not doing it with intention.
Well, that's true. And it snowballs, which is why we see these groups that are a few locations. They're going along, hey, everything's great. We're going to add another location next year. They go and add that location and things start to fall apart. Profitability starts to nosedive because they didn't create these systems, all those little things happening in the background that doctor was mind blown about, because I assure you, he or she is not alone. Unless you have all of that dialed in, it's going to compound. Like you said,
Here, Jamie, here's what happens. It becomes easier to sell your business for lowest dollar than it is in the mind of the doctor to sell the business for the lowest dollar because they're not producing at the optimal levels they should be producing at,
huh?
just to get away from the snowball, just
Ugh,
to get out from underneath the snowball.
that
I mean,
like crushes me inside because what we do, like at the
100%,
hardest,
100%.
maximize value so you can exit when you want to, whether that's a year or 10 years. Dial it in now. Dial it in.
That's why we met. That's why we
Yeah.
met. I mean, that conversation. But like, guys, look, I've had that conversation with maybe 100 different dentists over the last 15 years. Bro, it's too much. I can't handle all this stress. I can't handle, and I'm not trying to sell on fear or anything. I'm just saying that doesn't have to be a reality. And sometimes it's just like, hey, this is really annoying. How do I fix this annoying thing? I mean, all of it's not doom and gloom, but or something does break, and I'm like, well, why did it break? Like, well, we just didn't have a thing in play. I'm like, all right, well, let's fix that, move on. Or it's a malpractice case, or it's a board complaint, like, all of these things are just broken processes or an error within the process. So,
Yeah.
but if there's an opportunity to like purposely fix this, and definitely Polaris and the work you guys are doing, like the people that I've referred to you, like there's a systematic way to kind of get that resource and start the transformation process. It definitely is helpful. So, but the good news is all of this can be fixed. All of it can
Yes.
be optimized.
Yeah, like you said, the point here is not to make this fear-based. It's to make it value-based.
Eh,
We want to increase the value of your business so you can create the personal freedom that you want. You can choose to exit when you want to exit, whether that's next year or 15 years. The point is, the choice becomes yours, and you create choices after you've created your own freedom. And you
Yeah.
create freedom by having the right systems and operations in place. It's really foundational. So I
So
appreciate your insights. It helps.
So just to reiterate, if you made it this far, thank you. How to
Yes.
build one way to do the work, no matter how many locations, no matter what the states,
One way.
states are one way. Who assign clear ownership and give the baton to an operations person to let them operationalize all that.
Mhm.
And then when do you have time to do it? You don't. So
We
you
know
need to
the answer.
let someone else do it, yeah,
Yeah.
and then, but then also develop these operational routines and rhythms so the work lives at work, it doesn't live in the heads of the people when they go home.
Yeah. My 2 takeaways from this are done desk because I love what you're doing, but second, and even a step prior or in lockstep with that is an ops person that can handle all this. Take it off your plate, stop worrying about it, don't take it home with you, have good boundaries, all the things that I get on my soapbox about every couple of weeks here and preach. So, but you're a big part of that, and we appreciate you coming on. I know our listeners really do love hearing from you because you have these insights that are really actionable, which is important. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Jamie, for having me on. If call a brother. I'm like Deion Sanders, right? I'm not hard to find. But really, our mission here is to help people, lift them up. Mutual mission: lift people and
Yes.
help them up. So, thanks again for letting me have a voice, and appreciate the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, how do our listeners get in touch with you if they would like to reach out?
Dundesk.com. It's the easiest way. Just give us a ring and ask for a meeting, and we'll give it to you.
Awesome. Thank you. And to our entire audience, we love the questions that you all send us. So keep them coming, and we'll keep delivering the content that you ask for. As always, if you want to learn about any of our Polaris expert advisory services, or maybe there's a topic that we haven't covered that you'd like to hear about, you can send us an email to info@polarishealthcarepartners.com, and be sure to visit our website at polarishealthcarepartners.com where you'll find weekly articles from Diwakar Sinha, our CEO, to grow and support your healthcare business, along with access to all of our podcast episodes, events, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for being a loyal listener and subscriber. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a colleague and be sure to leave us a rating on your favorite podcast platforms. We'll see you on the next episode of the Group Practice Accelerator podcast.